Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adjusted for Risk podcast from the shores of Lake Tahoe. You know, it's no secret that demand for separately managed accounts is growing, and that trend is continuing as research firms like Cerulli and Escalent have recently released reports that state they expect SMAs to continue to grow in assets under management over into the near term and extended beyond that. Well, this week has been a big week for separately managed account managers as Zephyr announced the fourth quarter 2023 PSN Top Gun award winners. And today I have on the perfect guest to tell us more about separately managed accounts, the growth of separately managed accounts, and PSN Top Guns. But first, today's episode is sponsored by the award-winning Zephyr, which helps advisors, wealth managers, financial analysts, and investment professionals make more informed investment decisions. So with that, I'd like to pass it on and introduce to you all the star of the show. I'd like to welcome Nick Williams. Nick is the PSN product manager here at Zephyr. So Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you on. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be here. So my name is Nick Williams, and I've worked in financial software for a bit over 10 years. I got to start my career as a hedge fund analyst at a really small RIA firm in Reno that managed a few small fund of funds. So I got to be a hedge fund analyst and became an in-house expert of the analytics tool we used at the time, which was PerTrack. And as luck would have it, PerTrack's development offices were like a mile up the road. And so I was lucky enough to start working for them in their support team, and then worked into a role as a scrum master for the development team. And then after PerTrack, I got to work for several other software related jobs in various companies. I got to learn a whole bunch about ETL and process management, other database related technologies. And so, yeah, as the opportunity came available to work for Informa on the PSN team, I was able to join here, and I'm super excited to grow the PSN database and just keep its tradition of excellence.
Fantastic, Nick. It's interesting you brought that up. Your career path is very similar to mine. I was a user of Style Advisor, Zephyr, one of Zephyr's legacy products 20 some years ago in the industry. And from there, that's how I got to, come to Zephyr, was actually being a user. So interesting how our career paths have kind of crossed there or paralleled. You mentioned the PSN database. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the PSN database is and how it helps both really financial advisors and asset managers?
Yeah. So PSN is one of the original SMA databases in existence. It was founded in 1984, which makes it 40 years old this year. We collect over 600 data points and have 8,500 active products from about 1,300 different companies. We also update over 250 different peer and style universes and have various methods that allow really advanced peer group and indexing. So it's a great tool for people searching for investment managers because we have a huge amount of coverage in the market. And we also make the construction of peer groups and indexing pretty easy with the curated universes. And then, of course, with integration to Zephyr, you can construct really advanced portfolios and do a lot of different risk analysis ratings and portfolio optimizations.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And we discussed and the growth and popularity of SMAs is growing. So I think it's very important to have a database that like you said, it's been around for 40 years that has integrity and clean data and information, a lot of comprehensive information as financial advisors in the investment world, turn to SMAs, they need a good, reliable place to find data and search for those top performing managers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, speaking of top performing managers, can you please tell us a little bit about PSN Top Guns and why is the award important and noteworthy?
Yeah, so Top Guns is a great award, and it showcases really the best managers from a whole bunch of specialized peer groups. So we have over 50 different peer groups that we construct for the managers, and we pull out the top 10 managers from each different peer group in 6 different flavors of the award. So we have anywhere from showcasing managers who have done the best in the most recent quarter to showing managers who have done the best over 5 years. And we even have a special 10-year category for managers that have over a decade of performance. So Top Guns is great because of the breadth of coverage that we get over the industry. So the universes really make it unique because we have anywhere from uh, just an equity award, so you can see the best equity manager over the last quarter, over the last 5 years, or managers that have 10-year track records. So you can see how they've done, and see the best 10 managers in the SMA category over 10 years. We also have very specific universes that have smaller amounts of managers. So if you're looking for a sub strategy or a different slice of the equities world, we have the managers that performed really well in those categories also. So it's probably one of the most broad coverage awards in the industry. And it makes it really easy to just get a great handle on what's going on in different types of assets and different asset classes across the SMA world and see what's going on across a variety of different time periods.
Great. Thanks for that information, Nick. So I could imagine it being very useful for both sides. You've got that financial advisor could be a great starting point for a financial advisor who's looking for separately managed accounts, looking at Top Guns and being a great place to start when you've got all these different SMAs to choose from. With that being said, on the asset management side, I can see it very, obviously you be named a PSN Top Gun award winner adds credibility and you can market it and a lot of benefits to asset managers as well in terms of marketing and building exposure to their strategies. So it's really a two-prong approach there, which would benefit really the whole wealth management space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great award to showcase when someone's won it,
Mhm.
and because we have so many various time periods and different variations of it, it really showcases a manager's performance over time and across all of the asset classes they participate in.
Fantastic. So with that being said, let's move along. Like I said, Zephyr just announced the PSN Top Gun Award winners for quarter 4 of 2023. So let's move along into highlighting some of those strategies. And as you know, in the fourth quarter, the S&P 500 index posted a very strong 11.7% return during the quarter. Closed out 2024 with a bang as investor expectations for rate cuts during the first part of 2024 grew, and that is going to be the story that we talk about a lot here. And what drove performance during that fourth quarter is expectations for rate cuts in 2024. Develop global equities, for example, using the MSCI World X US Index, posted over a 10.5% return. And that also, those developed global equities also benefited from the growing sentiment that rate cuts were imminent in 2024. Meanwhile, emerging market equities, while they underperformed, developed markets still had a very strong showing, posting a nearly 8% return during the quarter. But what hindered them were worries about the health of the China's economy. That monetary policy shift to potential rate cuts on the horizon provided a big boost for fixed income markets as well. The Bloomberg Global Aggregate Index posted a 8.1% return, which was the best quarterly performance in over 2 decades. So that strong year for U.S. equities, uh, and the S&P 500 index capped off the year by once again posting that 11.7% return during the fourth quarter. And again, it goes back to the Fed and the Fed statement signals from the Federal Reserve that interest rate cuts were upcoming in 2024 boosted investor sentiment during the quarter. Inflation measured by the Consumer Price Index cooled while the labor market continued to remain tight during the last 3 months of the year. Then you had those interest rate sensitive sectors like real estate, information technology, and consumer discretionary. Those sectors outperformed. And really, it's no surprise that they outperformed, as especially those interest rate sensitive sectors like information technology did really well during the quarter. Meanwhile, energy sector, no surprise, posted a negative return as crude oil prices fell. So as a result, it was a risk-on environment during that fourth quarter. Growth stocks, or the Russell 3000 Growth Index, posted a 14% return during the quarter, outperforming value stocks. So growth beat value, while the Russell 3000 Value Index still posted a very strong 9.8% return. Meanwhile, again, going along with the risk-on environment, small caps represented by the Russell 2000 Index posted a 14% return, outperformed large caps measured by the Russell 1000 Index, which posted a nearly 12% return. So with that being said, here are some strategies that make up the PSN Top Gun small cap growth universe. So we have the Wasatch Global Investors. Their small cap ultra growth strategy posted a very impressive 18.8% return for the quarter. Franklin Templeton Investments, or their Franklin US Small Cap Growth Equity strategy, posted a 17.9% return for the quarter. And lastly, in this space, one other one I'd like to mention is Jackson Square Partners. Their Small Cap Opportunities strategy posted a plus 16.4% for the quarter. Nick, on your experience with the database, you're in the data every day. Anything interesting that you've seen in the small cap space, small cap growth space?
No, I think the most interesting thing within the small cap growth space is really just the way that the fund flows have kind of shaped up and gone out. So we see big decreases in fund flows from mutual fund investors, but we also see small increases from high net worth or SMA investors. So it's interesting just to see how well the performance is done, but how nervous the market is about it.
That's really interesting. It's a little bit more contrarian, right? Maybe those investors, they're taking their profits off the table, right? They've had a strong year, time to take some profits, reduce their exposure, and also, maybe put some of that money to work in fixed income, where maybe they can get some yields at 6-7% in corporate investment grade fixed income. So it's very interesting. Thanks for that. I always like to look at flows just to kind of get a better idea of what the sentiment is for investors. Now, the expectations, again, it's going back to that interest rate story. The expectations for interest rate hiking cycle is now complete. As I mentioned, benefited developed equity markets as well as US markets. The MSCI EFI index posted a very strong, almost 10.5% return during the fourth quarter. That cooler inflation in the US and in the Eurozone also supported share prices and contributed to the expectations that rate hikes are behind us, and we can look forward to rate cuts. Despite struggles and uncertainty regarding China's economy and the real estate sector, the Middle East conflict, which started in the fourth quarter, and higher bond yields, the MSCI Emerging Markets Index posted a very solid, um, almost 8% return during the quarter. So when you consider what went on in emerging markets with China struggles, the Middle East conflict, and higher bond yields, to me, it's surprising that emerging markets was able to post a nearly 8% return. With that being said, here are some of the strategies that made up the PSN Top Guns list for the EFI universe. Dundas Global Investors, their international capital and dividend growth strategy, posted a very solid 17.7% return for the quarter. The Ithaca Group, Ithaca International Strategy, it posted a 16.6% for the quarter. And Sierra Investment Partners, their Franklin EFI Plus equity strategy, posted a 16.2% for the quarter. Nick, anything interesting there in the EFI universe that you would caught your eye?
No, EV Universe is similar. We see pretty consistent fund outflows across all of our investor types. So high net worth mutual fund, commingled funds, wraps, all of the asset types reported in the PSN were showing outflows for the EFI universe, which again is interesting given the really strong performance.
Mm-hmm.
On the Top Gun side, the 3-star category is really pretty interesting because it's really just strictly performance based, but also is looking at funds that have performed well over the last 36 months. And on those, again, most of the managers, we are showing pretty significant fund outflows, but a handful of them are showing also some significant fund inflows. So Artisan Partners International Value, we're seeing 11% over the last 3 years, while the index is about 4.5. They saw a big increase of almost 400 or a little over 450 million. Acadian Asset with their non-US is showing 200 million in inflows. So there are some really interesting strategies out there that are doing well and attracting attention. But overall, the market's very nervous about that sector in general.
Interesting. Again, have to wonder if just all the geopolitical concerns out there, there's a lot of them,
Yeah.
making people kind of leery of international, even though the returns are there. It's maybe more of a contrarian play also.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see in 2024 as most of the really concerning stuff has started to take shape.
And it's interesting you brought that up, Nick, too. I've had a couple guests on that have talked about maybe it's not a big enough story right now, but the amount of people that are going through an election this year is not just the US that has a very important election ahead of them, but it is like 90% of the globe. There are so many people across the globe that are going to vote this year, more so than in recent memory. And that could really impact and cause some volatility and uncertainty moving forward. So moving along to fixed income, in our last asset class that we're going to discuss, the 10-year treasury yield fell from 4.57% to 3.87% during the quarter, again, due to growing sentiment, investor sentiment that interest rate hikes are over and cuts are on the horizon in 2024. That steep decline in yields and potential shift in the direction of monetary policy resulted in a very strong quarter for bonds across the globe. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the Bloomberg Global Aggregate Index posted an eye-opening 8.1% return for the quarter. And it was same here domestically. The Bloomberg US aggregate came in at 6.82% during the quarter. So here are some strategies that make up the PSN Top Gun's international fixed income universe. And, Nick mentioned at the beginning, we have a lot of different universes within the PSN database. Here is another one that helps make it easier for financial advisors to search for, international fixed income strategy. So Connor, Clark, and Lund Investments, their CC and L long bond strategy, posted a very impressive 17.7% return for the quarter. State Street Global Advisors, their Canadian long-term bond index, posted a 14.8% for the quarter. And 91, the 91 emerging markets hard currency debt strategy, posted a strong 14.2% for the quarter. Nick, anything to add there?
No, again, I always like to look at the 3-star or greater just to see a longer track record. The 3-year on the FTSE World Index is negative 9.3, and so the managers that we have in our 3-star Top Guns are all ranging from a positive 0.9 to a 4.1% over the 3-year time period. So it's interesting that they've been able to really outperform for that amount of time. The quarterly performance of those managers, or the 1-year performance of those managers, is also really solid. So Invesco Eurobank Loans is getting almost 20% and is definitely seeing positive fund flows for that, which is different than really the rest of the universe. So again, just like most of the other categories, especially the international categories, we're seeing broad outflows across most of the investor types. So yeah, it's interesting. The market does seem to be reacting to performance, and there are some managers that are standing out as being able to attract assets. But overall, I think there's just a lot of concern with everything international at the moment.
Yep, very good point, Nick. Very good point. So with that, I always like to close. First of all, thank you so much for coming on, Nick. You dropped a ton of great knowledge, shared a bunch of great insight. Fun story or something interesting maybe that you've experienced recently. You are down in Reno, so just down the hill from myself. Anything interesting happening?
So yeah, last week, and I've lived in Reno my whole life, so I've gone through a lot of different winters. Some are completely dry, and some of them are significant. This winter's been hit and miss
Yeah.
here and there, but it's the first time I've ever actually been trapped on a ski hill where I just didn't feel comfortable enough with the road conditions to drive down. So yeah, last Tuesday my daughter got to ski in state for the high school ski races. She's a freshman, so that was awesome. But in the morning, it was actually, as far as Reno's concerned, it was a really clear, nice morning. But there had been some weather the night before, and so I was going to drive my wife and my daughter up to the hill, and then I was going to pick them up after work after she was done with the race. And I got up, and maybe 3 miles from the hill, the weather or the road started getting bad, and it was really the first time I'd been really nervous about driving in ice and snow at Mount Rose Highway. So started sliding, and then got to the top, and just kind of decided I had to call Randy and say, dude, I'm stuck. I can't. I don't feel comfortable driving downhill because uphill everything, gravity works to your advantage. If you take your foot off the gas, you slow down. But downhill, not really the same story. So I needed to wait for the road to thaw. But it was kind of a good thing. I got to watch a race I hadn't been able to see her all year, so that was cool. And it was really great conditions because they did get snow the night before. So yeah, it was overall a good day. But I drove up the hill wearing shorts because I was just planning on being a taxi driver and dropping everyone off and coming back home. But luckily it's the car we take when we go skiing. So my ski pants were in there, and I didn't have to freeze the whole time.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. A lot of people obviously drive up from Sacramento, San Francisco, or Reno, and they don't realize like the big potential weather change that can happen going up the mountain, and they're not prepared for it. Real quick story: it was, gosh, probably 6 years ago. I like to go up to Kirkwood. That's my favorite mountain to ski. But going out there, you may, if you're familiar with the drive, it's not exactly the safest drive, especially with the storm. So you have to time it right. And a buddy and I went out there, and it was snowing, but we didn't have too much to worry about. We went up in the morning, and about, I don't know, 12 noonish, there started to be news of, you know, roads are closing. You better, get back to South Lake Tahoe or leave now if you want. Otherwise, you're stuck out at Kirkwood. I mean, there's worse places get stuck, but all the lifts were shut down. So we kind of are like, okay, we better head out. And whenever I go to Kirkwood, I always fill up my truck with gas. And we got there, and we left, and about 5 miles down the road, the traffic just stopped. And we're like, what is going on? And we're sitting there for an hour or so, and we turned around. We couldn't get any news stations, and phones didn't work. Turned around, went back to Kirkwood, and there was an avalanche. So completely covered the road. So we hung out at Kirkwood for a while. Just kind of, we couldn't ski, everything was shut down. So we just hung out there, and we are like, well, we were getting conflicting information from Caltrans and other people saying that was open. So it was like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. We've got all of our warm gear. We bought some water and snacks and went there, and it was still closed. The avalanche it hadn't been cleared yet. And I think we were waiting. It ended up being a good 8 to 9 hours before they cleared it all. They finally cleared it, and we got home about 10 hours later. But yeah, you got to be prepared. And whenever I drive off the mountain or anything, whether it's nice or not, I always got a emergency bag for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So with that, Nick, like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing such great insight about SMAs, the growth of SMAs in the PSN database. Such a useful thing for both asset managers and financial advisors to leverage. Where can our listeners get more information about PSN and PSN Top Guns?
Yeah, everything is available off of our Zephyr website. So if you go to our website and click on PSN, you'll have access to Ryan's commentary. You'll have access to information about Top Guns. If you're not registered with PSN, there's a link to just register. Once you're set up, you can view the entire report and see all of the information for all of the different asset types that we have available.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Zephyr's Adjusted for Risk podcast. You can watch all of our podcasts on the Zephyr YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify and iHeartRadio. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your week.